Am I next? That is the chilling question thousands of women and girls in South Africa are asking as a relentless series of killings continue to shock the country. I'm Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal. In the first of two special shows on South Africa, we ask, how can gender-based violence be eradicated? Join today's conversation through Twitter and our YouTube live chat.
South Africa's president says that violence against women and girls is a crime against our common humanity, amid a wave of killings that has provoked revulsion and anger. University student Natasha Konabir died earlier today, a day after she was dropped off at her home in Durban unconscious. She had been missing for 3 weeks. In another recent case, student Uyinene Mrwetyana was found dead inside a post office in Cape Town. And the rape and killing of 14-year-old Janika Marlow in Cape Town has also horrified the nation. Malika has more on what people are sharing online. Malika.
Blame no more. Without us, share our burden. Just some of the hashtags we've been keeping an eye on over the past week. But much of what we've seen has centered on women asking, am I next? And we asked former Stream guest and artist Amira Conrad, who's been tweeting from Cape Town, to explain. Take a look.
In the wake of all of the atrocious rapes and murders just following Women's Month and during Women's Month, we don't know if we are going to be next. We don't know if we're going to be the next headline for the newspapers. We don't know if we're going to be some random man's next victim or even the victim of someone that we know personally. We don't know if we're going to be found in a ditch somewhere or if we're going to die, as Koleka Putuma says, with our hands up and our legs open. And we don't want to be. We all want to live our lives freely and without fear, but we are afraid. We don't want to be afraid anymore, and we shouldn't be.
Chilling words. Well, in this photo, Mandisa Lings Harris asserts, I am not next. She tells us that women in South Africa are either victims or they know someone who is, and that these hashtags are a cry for help and a call for the government to do something. The call for change is something we're also seeing on the streets. So Jason Coomer took these photos at an anti-violence protest outside Parliament in Cape Town late last week. And more protests are coming this week, with activists saying silence is no longer an option in the fight against gender-based violence. Femi?
So we are joined now from Johannesburg by Yolanda Tianti. She is co-executive director at the archive AmINext. The organization aims to tackle gender-based violence. Mandisa Kanyile is director at Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence. She's also in Johannesburg. And completing our lineup from Johannesburg, Letohonolo Mokowani. He is a social justice and gender activist. Hello, everybody. I wish this was under better circumstances, that we got so many amazing young South Africans here to talk about a huge issue in South Africa. Yolanda, and this is for all of you guests, but Yolanda, you can start here. What is it about South Africa that makes it so dangerous for women? What's going on?
Hi, thank you for having me on the show, and I'd like to greet everyone that's watching and tuning in. I think asking what is it that makes South Africa so violent, or rather, why is gender-based violence specifically so rife? I think it would be doing an injustice to kind of not look at all the other socioeconomic and political factors that underpin, I guess, the legacy of where we are as where we come from and where we are as a country. This is talking about or looking at apartheid, looking at the supposed democracy that we are living in, looking at our state governance and the political structures, and if they are effective enough or not, and have they been held accountable. It's looking at the trauma that we as the Black people, who are the majority living in this country, where are we with that in terms of dealing with the trauma that we had to carry since apartheid, from colonization, to where we are right now in 2019? Have we received adequate resources and access to avenues of healing and recovery and just getting justice? I do not think so. So gender-based violence is just one of those symptoms. but I think, there's a bigger issue apart from gender-based violence, which is we are a broken society. We are a society in poverty. Instead of us, I guess, our economy growing and all of those other factors, we've seen a decline in that, and we've seen a rise in poverty. We've seen a rise in more broken homes, in angry people, and people living on empty stomachs. We've seen angry men not getting help and them taking that
So
out
Yolanda, I'm
on,
hearing
on,
all of
on
this, and it's
women.
complex and detailed, and you could continue for another 30 minutes and still not be finished. Does that make
Yep.
men rape?
Yes, it actually does. All of those factors do make men rape. All of those factors do make women rape and make women abusive and make men abusive. I think I'm not trying to make the conversation solely about men. I'm trying to make it about the fact that we are broken. I am broken as a society, and therefore it does make us violent. And it also makes the other person vulnerable to this violence. The other person being black, and I guess also if we look at it racially, that's also another conversation to be had. But yes, it makes every one of us capable of violence.
So many layers there, Yolanda. I wanted to bring this in, and I'm glad you agree, Mandisa, because I'll give this to you. Speaking of all the layers, it is what's brought people out onto the streets. So this is Vicky on Twitter, who says, posters with messages like these were being held up in anguish and sorrow against femicide. We don't feel safe anymore as young and old women in our country, and it seems like there is no justice willing to be served towards femicide partakers. Another person writes in a personal story of sorts. Lusanda says, being vigilant and staying alert of your surroundings is honestly not even a choice anymore. I am always so paranoid and aware. Mandisa, I just want to break this down a little bit for our international audience. Is there a story from among the many tragic ones that we've seen in recent weeks that stands out to you that would explain this, that would elucidate what this fear is like for so many young women?
Well, Uyinene, most definitely, one of our young people who literally left campus as a student to go to the post office to deliver a package, to go and have a package sent. And what happened is that the person who works at the post office said that she couldn't send the package at that particular point in time and needed to return a few hours later. When she returned to send the package, he raped and killed her at the post office. Just afternoon, like around about 2:30 in the afternoon. So in broad daylight, just for going to deliver a package, she was killed, which means we are safe nowhere. The paranoia is actually real. If you can just go to deliver a package and get yourself killed, that means anything can happen to you on the street. I mean, women have been abducted in taxis in broad daylight. Taxis are our form of public transport, and they've been raped in broad daylight too. Women have been raped in bathroom facilities at schools, in tertiary institutions. Old women have been raped in homes. Women actually, their homes are actually entered into. So there's no space that's safe, whether it's broad daylight, whether it's at night, no matter what you're wearing. 3-month-old babies are being raped. Old women are being raped. Teenagers are being raped. Women in their mid-30s are being raped. So there isn't a safe person. There isn't a safe space. Young men are being raped. We're the rape capital of the world. There's nowhere where you can turn where you don't actually see a rape taking place, or someone who's either a survivor or a perpetrator. That's where we're at. If it hasn't happened to you, someone who's close to you has either done it or has experienced it. That's it.
Letho Honolo, you're keeping a respectful quiet here, but you are arguably the most important person in this conversation because it is mostly men in these situations who are attacking women. Knowing that, what is that like? Does that feel like there's a weight of responsibility on your shoulders? How do South African men go? It's a huge general question, but for you as a South African man, how do you navigate this extreme situation where women are not safe wherever they are, whatever age they happen to be?
It's really challenging, I think. I think it's really challenging because the conversation that's happening in South Africa right now is that men are not taking responsibility and saying, we are making South Africa unsafe for women. The conversation that men are having in this country is, some of them are saying hashtag not all of us. but we know that we are complicit in this system. We know that we are complicit in a system that promotes rape culture, that ensures that we are complicit in a system that allows gender-based violence to continue. We are the people that continue to rape men, to rape men, to rape women in this country. So I think that our responsibility in this country is for us to take responsibility, to first acknowledge that we are the people that make women unsafe in this country. We are the people that make feminized bodies unsafe in this country. We are the people that make queer people unsafe in this country. From there on, we can start working on how we're able to unlearn toxic masculinities. Because a lot of the time, it's about power. We do a lot of these things to assert a form of power. As Yoli said earlier, it's because of a system of colonization and a system of dehumanization that black men in this country have their boot against black women in order to take some form of power back from them. And so it makes it unsafe for women in the home. You find that your uncle may be the one who's going to rape you, your father may be the one that's going to rape you. But I think also the conversation that we should be having is that we should allow women to have their own humanity. It seems in this country, another thing that we do, we tend to say, but imagine if it was your sister. Why are we still centering men in this conversation? Why are we still centering men? Why can we not respect women for being women? Why are we supposed to humanize them by bringing them closer? Yeah, and bringing them closer to us and saying, oh, if it was your sister, if it was your mother. No, it's just a person, you know. I think that the issue in this country is we rape. And we should just stop raping and stop killing women and stop beating up women. Like it's not, the system is not working. Yes, the system is not working. The system is messed up. But we are the first point of call. We are the ones who are saying, like, we are the ones who are raping people. So let's take responsibility for ourselves.
So beautifully said there, and I saw the women nodding along as you were talking. I wanted to bring this up. There is a fantastic thread here, and we'll tweet it out because I can't read them all, but I'm going to share two from Tato Hatsi on Twitter, who says, men should be more involved. We are treating this situation like gender-based violence is the actual root of the problem, and it isn't. This starts with how these boys are raised with problematic mindsets that teach them that a woman's job is to attend to the needs of men. But Tato Hatsi goes on to say it's not just the men that are poisoned from young, because women too are brainwashed into thinking that our place in society is to live up to the expectations of a good wife, and that's in quotes, who does nothing less than abide by her husband's rules, even sexually. Yolanda, talk to us about this perspective that it comes from a young age and it comes from socialization.
I mean, it really is. Of course, our behavior is learned behavior, right? No one just wakes up and wants to go assault somebody without having been taught that or haven't been exposed to that, or, you know, just you don't just wake up and want to rape somebody unless there is some sort of conditioning behind that or socialization that has taught you and told you that it is normal. So yes, it is definitely correct. And again, as Zolita Honolo was saying that, you know, we can talk about the system and all of these things. At the end of the day, it lies with us adults who have the responsibility of raising these young boys and girls. But also the responsibility lies with us who are broken and realize that as adults or young adults. So for me, it's like dealing with this thing at both levels or at the same time, simultaneously, right? Looking at what we can do to prevent it from happening and also responding to this mass violence right now. And it's like on the English, it's on the both ends of it's like the spectrum. It's the same thing, right? So I'm here for conversations about let's better and raise young men, but then we can't surely expect a broken man right now. I'm in a relationship with a 26-year-old man, and he has suffered things that I could not even imagine. When he opened up to me, it was like, oh, you know, and now imagine having or thinking about procreating with this individual whom I deeply care about, but understanding that right now he doesn't have the avenues to get the help that he needs psychologically, the help that he needs financially. To get that psychological help, it costs money.
So Yolanda, just take a pause for a moment, because there's so much to talk about. You said a political level. I want to bring in your president right now, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was talking about gender-based violence. He's been talking about this for some time now, as has the South African government. Yes, this is not a new thing. This is not just because people are marching right now. This is the latest.
Yes.
that he's been talking
But
about.
this is the problem.
Let me give him his 35 seconds so people can hear how he's framing the issue, and then Mandisa, you pick up off the back of it. This is Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa.
Okay. Violence against women is not a women's problem. It is not a problem of what a woman said or did, what a woman was wearing or where she was walking. Violence against women is a man's problem. It is men who rape and kill women. There is therefore an obligation on the men of our country to act to end such behavior and such crimes.
Mandisa, I was looking at the president's Twitter feed and he was naming whole communities. We need your help. We need to come up with a solution. Businesses and organizations and institutions, we need your help. Your reaction to that?
I partially agree with him that we need all hands on deck. We definitely need men to take some kind of responsibility because they're not. We definitely need business to stop acting like they are not part of South African society and actually take some responsibility for the scourge, especially those that make profit from drivers from gender-based violence, such as the alcohol industry. So I agree with him on that. My issue that I have with the speech that he made that day is how it's the same thing that we've heard before. He made the same speech last year at the Gender Summit. He made the same speech earlier on this year when he opened the Sexual Offences Court, and he signed the declaration of the Gender Summit. So there are only one or two things that he said that were new. He said he's going to ask for Parliament to change legislation so that we have access to the Sexual Offenders Registry. He forgot to mention the fact that it hasn't been updated properly and that it doesn't have correct information and that there's perpetrators that aren't on it. But let's not talk about those issues. The fact is, why has it taken so long for us to have access to them? The fact that a sexual offender was working for a South African post office for government with a criminal record and managed to go under the radar clearly means that it's not working, even for those that do have access to it. So the thing that he complains about all the time is the fact that he doesn't have resources to allocate to gender-based violence when we're the #1 rape capital of the world, which doesn't make sense. I think what we need to do is now take the fight to capital and say, well, 90% of the South African economy is held in few hands. So if there's a scourge of gender-based violence in the country and over 50% of the population is affected, how's about you actually start paying your role and actually help us fund the fight? That's what I think we need to focus on at the moment.
You're not the only one. I want to play this from a member of parliament. This is Nazli Sharif, a member of the Democratic Alliance Party in Johannesburg, and here's what she told us.
I think that there is no easy steps to tackling gender-based violence and femicide. What we as a nation need to do is look internally and look at the institutions that are meant to protect women and children from gender-based violence and femicide. And once you do that, you will realize that our entire institutional system, all the way to Parliament, is ineffective in dealing with issues on the ground. And I think once we look at how we can strengthen our institutions and ensure that this translates onto the ground, nothing will change. If we want to see change, we have to be different.
Lethro Khonolo, I'll give this one to you. She talks about it being institutional, a structural issue, but then take a look at this tweet. Someone on Twitter says, my Uber driver said something relevant today. We're looking in the wrong place for change, asking people from the government who live in lavish homes to solve crime in the streets we live in, whereas we should start in the community and face the perpetrator. So this idea of the government should do something and other people saying, what can the government do? It should start in individual homes.
It's quite challenging because I think we live in a country where, we voted for a particular government. And when we think about the elections that happened last year, a lot of the big political parties, including the ANC, were telling us that they're going to ensure that there's an end to gender-based violence. So a lot of us put our faith in certain political parties because of their different manifestos and telling us what they're going to do. And government funds a lot of structures that are in place. So when we think about the criminal justice system, we think about if a woman is raped, the first people that they're going to encounter is the police station, or they're going to encounter the hospital. So those are the institutional structures that are in place that we need to deal with, that when we go to a particular hospital, in some instances, there isn't a rape kit. In order to ensure that there's DNA that can be taken. When you go to the police office, they don't treat you with the necessary dignity and respect that they should treat victims. And also there's no room for you to be treated. There's no information about in nearby counseling centers. So yes, while on the one hand, we want to talk about individual perpetrators and our communities taking responsibility, we also know that the criminal
perpetrator itself.
Yes, we also know that the state is the one that is perpetuating all this crime. The fact that we can't access the criminal justice system as people who have been violated in this country means we are not able to benefit.
Let me put this to you, because you've outlined the issues so clearly. We've not done much in terms of how do you get by this? Where are we right now? How do you get to a situation where there is almost zero GBV? There should be none. There should be none whatsoever. Let me show you something here on my laptop. These are the youngsters of Selborne Primary School. They're from East London. On the 3rd of September, their headmaster had this assembly. So these little boys are 7 to about 11 years old. So their headmaster told them on September the 3rd this. Have a listen.
This morning, the challenge is for us as Selbornians to ask ourselves, how do we treat the women in our lives? How do we respect them? Do we love them? Do we honor them? When they tell us to sit down and to behave ourselves, do we do that? And I believe that we need to start a revolution in South Africa. And we need to be the men. Selbornians need to be the men in this country that show other men how to respect, how to nurture, and how to treat women with dignity.
Leifo Honolo, you said that men should just stop raping. That is, to me, seems like it's very naive. It's very obvious, but naive, because there obviously needs to be some help. Would the help start at telling youngsters and educating young boys about how they behave around women? Is that the way forward?
We speak very often about the lack of sexual comprehensive education in South Africans' basic education system. I think one of the major problems is that we don't have a comprehensive sexual education. So we don't teach children what gender and sex is. We don't teach children what consent is. And consent in the broader sense, right? So when you encounter people, you just don't go and hug them. You just don't take from them. You ask them if you can hug them, if there are certain things. So yes, education is a very important role in ensuring that we teach men how to unlearn. But the problem is we'd have to overhaul the whole society, because we can teach children in a particular place how to behave, but if they're going back to an environment that is different,
the rest of society.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is different.
It's a whole
So
360.
Yeah, we would need to overhaul the whole thing in order for us to...
But this is such a giant... I'm just trying to get my head around that. So the whole country has to go back to school, basically. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
No, what we need is proper, comprehensive social behavioral change programs. Right. So we actually did this with HIV/AIDS, the HIV/AIDS response in the country. We got to a point where we were educating adults, children, everyone. What is a condom? What is an STI? What is HIV/AIDS? What are the prevention methods? How do you treat it once you have it? We did that, and it worked with the HIV/AIDS response. So we know how to do social behavioral change programs. We've done it before. We just need to do it for gender-based violence. It's that simple, where it's age appropriate for people who are young, age appropriate for the old, speaks in different languages, because we've got 11 official languages in our country, and it actually speaks to both rural and urban people. Government knows this. They're aware about it. They even know how much it's going to cost to do it. They haven't allocated the money to make it happen. Our issue is the fact that the fight is not funded, and this is why we are marching to corporate South Africa on Friday at 3 a.m. in the morning and telling them that we actually want to shut down Sandton until they help fund the fight against gender-based violence.
Mandisa, that is the plan for action. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you to all of you for today's conversation. Now, tomorrow we'll return to South Africa to look at what's behind a wave of xenophobic attacks. JJ Bola on Twitter says xenophobia and gender-based violence in South Africa are two sides of the same coin. They're connected, part of the hierarchical structure that when Black men can't punch upwards at their oppressors, they punch down at those they consider beneath them. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. As always, you can send your thoughts on Twitter, YouTube, and AlJazeera.com/thestream. Bye-bye.